Well, a group of House Republicans have drafted a conservative framework for the nation's post-pandemic economic recovery. Joining us now to discuss the details is Chairman of the Republican Study Committee, Congressman Mike Johnson. Hi, Congressman Johnson. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, great to be with you.
So your committee's released this new framework today, which is touted as a framework for recovery, accountability, and prosperity. Now, you put out a press release listing those 5 pillars of representing 5 task force policy measures. Can you briefly describe each pillar for us and what it would be responsible for?
Sure thing. Thanks for helping us highlight this. We do believe this is a time for principled leadership. And the Republican Study Committee, as you know, is the largest caucus of conservatives in the Congress. We have 149 members in the House. And we've been working for 15 months. Prior to the pandemic, we were working to put together a conservative playbook of policy reforms and ideas that would continue to move the country forward in the next Congress. And so we condensed that in these 5 working groups, task forces, to really modify and use that for the urgent need that we have right now. And that is, of course, to guide us through the pandemic and the recovery that follows. So just some quick highlights. These are 37 points, a blueprint, a framework for us to do this, for Congress to work together. Real quickly, eliminate barriers to employment and get Americans back to work. We want to flatten the debt curve and protect the nation's fiscal health, as you just heard Senator McConnell reference there. Hold China accountable for its harmful actions that are related to this pandemic, and strengthen the U.S. healthcare system, ensuring healthcare providers have the supplies that they need, and then improving efficiency and accountability in the federal government overall, because that will help us respond to the pandemic. So there's a lot of ideas in there. We believe it's a good blueprint for moving forward, and we're excited to get it out there today.
Yeah, I want to circle back to the accountability portion of it. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has gotten approval to form a new oversight panel for the federal government's coronavirus response. It'll be responsible for looking at how taxpayer dollars are being spent, the Trump administration's decision-making regarding the virus. How are your accountability efforts better than Pelosi's if you had to compare them?
Well, I hate to say this, but Speaker Pelosi's accountability is about really impeachment 3.0. I mean, they're trying to really go after the president in election year. I think they're pretty transparent. That's what it's about. There's already plenty of oversight in how we're spending these dollars. What we're talking about is real policy reform measures that differ from that. This is not politics. This is about making government work more effectively and more efficiently for taxpayers. And so just simple ideas. One practical one that comes to mind that's included in our blueprint is there's a lot of federal office space that is not being used, and yet taxpayers are still paying for that. And so we have a simple measure, a piece of legislation that's already drafted that would utilize that to scale down all that available office space, wasteful use of taxpayer dollars, and use it to repurpose it for purposes of the pandemic, to be prepared for if there's another wave, that kind of thing. So this is just the application of common sense to some problems that are consistent and have been with us throughout the government. And that differs greatly to what Pelosi and the Democrats are trying to do, is drag the president's name through the mud in an election year.
Well, in your national security pillar, it focuses on pressing China, like you mentioned, and the WHO on these failures. How do you expect to get any truth on the matter from the Chinese Communist Party, considering their record, and know when China is being deceitful or not?
Well, that's a great point. We're very skeptical about all information that comes out of China, because they've shown they are not a good faith actor. I mean, I think that's a charitable way to say it. So we have a 10-point plan, 10 points, recommendations to hold the Chinese government accountable. Simple things, simple solutions that every American should agree with. For example, not having Chinese diplomats and their families be able to come into the government and come into the United States and make use of our education system and our benefits and things here until they openly apologize for blaming the U.S. for the coronavirus pandemic. I mean, simple things like that, all the way through the diplomatic channels of more, I think, stringent approaches to that. But I think President Trump has shown some sound leadership in that regard. He wants to hold China accountable, and I think the American people do as well. These are proposals on how to do it.
And then finally, Congressman, you and many of your colleagues are on the White House's congressional task force to fight this virus. It's also made up of Democrats. It's a bipartisan group. How are you going to sell your framework to the Democrat House majority, given the high level of partisanship that we've seen these past couple years?
Sure, great question. I mean, there's over 30 members of Congress who have been asked by the president to serve on the Reopen America Task Force, and I'm pleased to be one of them. The Democrats that are on that committee, I think, are open-minded. One thing we all have in common is that we know that we've got to get this economy going again, and this is a time for people to put partisan politics aside on these policy measures and do things that make sense, that follow common sense, that will actually get the economy going again. We had the greatest U.S. economy in history prior to the pandemic. We've got to get back to that. So I'm very open-minded and hopeful that my colleagues on the other side will be as well. We're presenting a framework. This is the first blueprint that's been put out there, and we think it'll be important for the dialogue and the conversation and the debate going forward, and we hope that's fruitful.
All right, Congressman Mike Johnson joining us. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Stay safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You too.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.